Hi everyone, my name is Vili and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity. Our guest today is Lana Boone, my yoga teacher. And every time I am in the studio with her, I've always enjoyed the energy and the aura that she's sharing with us. So I thought it would be cool to share some of that with you guys today on my channel. Lana is a dedicated entrepreneur, a wellness advocate, so hopefully we can learn some well-being tips from her. She is also the founder and CEO of Curly Clips, the first company to specialize in clip-in extension for curly and afro-textured hair. Anyway, enough from me. Welcome to Humans of Authenticity, Lana.
Hi, V. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for making the time. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listener first?
Yeah, sure. You did a great job. My name is Lana, and I am a yoga teacher. But before I was a yoga teacher, I was, and I still do it. I'm a founder of Curly Clips, as you said before. And I never thought in a million years I would be doing business, but here we are 11 years later, still in the game, still selling, and it's just been a very, very wild ride. But I love yoga and I see my life kind of going more in that direction, especially with wellness. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
That's cool. Thank you. So let's start with your story. Could you share 3 things you love about yourself with us?
Okay, well, that's a great question. 3 things I love about myself. I really appreciate how open I am to different ideas and different perspectives because I think that this openness really is a key to joy. And I see a lot of times people struggle with joy in particular, and they struggle with happiness. And I think it's that openness that I have that's really helpful because I can just, again, see from different perspectives. I'm not so tethered to just one way of doing things. And I guess the second thing I really appreciate about myself is I really like my spirituality. And again, I think my spirituality really helps keep me grounded and not looking for validation outside of myself. And again, not tying myself or shackling myself to things that are external to me. And then I also just like my sense of freedom and space to move, to like laugh, to play with art, to be happy. It's just that freedom that I also appreciate about myself. I give myself a lot of leeway to move and to dance and to be who I want to be. So those are 3 things that I appreciate about myself.
This is really cool. Can we unpack your second element about the spirituality journey?
Mhm.
You also mentioned that you do not look for validation outside of yourself. Is there an example that you can share with us to elaborate? What does that look like?
Yeah, of course. This can happen all day, any day, with anyone. A lot of times to feel good, we're looking to make sure that other people like us. Or if we want to do something that makes us happy, we are seeing how other people perceive us. Do they like what we're doing? And do they value what they're doing? And do they want us? What are other people thinking, essentially? And when you can kind of divorce yourself from the thoughts of others and just live in an authentic space, that's what I mean. So maybe a concrete example would be dance, right? Let's say you really love to dance, but you don't know how other people might look at your dancing. You might think that other people might feel like you can't dance, or maybe you're not the best dancer. But when you don't look for validation from others, you just dance anyway because you're not dancing for them. You're not dancing for their eyes. You're dancing for yourself and the joy of living. So let's say teaching yoga. Am I teaching yoga because I want students and other people to have a certain perception of me, to pat me on the back, to tell me I'm doing a good job? Or am I teaching yoga because I feel like it's a calling? And I think people really have to ask themselves that when it comes to all sorts of decisions that they make in life. Are you doing this because you think it makes you look good? Or are you doing this because you want good feedback from other people? Or are you doing it because it's truly a calling? You feel called to do it. Are those a bit more concrete?
That is perfect. It leads to a new question though. Using your word, realize your calling. I'm hearing that you start realizing your own purpose
Yes.
and you follow your purpose.
Yes.
You describe your own process to realize your own purpose in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, it starts there, right? In yoga, there's a quote that says, God is the truth and truth is God. So it's really about finding what the truth is. And that's a big question. What is truth, right?
Yes, it's a
Big
very
question.
abstract question. Yes.
And it's starting with what I call the small T truth. So the little truths,
Mm-hmm.
to get to the big T truths, the capital T truth. The small truths can be like, if we want to get back to what we were saying about being validated by others, are you doing this because it's a calling? Or are you doing this because other people expect you to do it, or you want to be praised by other people? You know, you ask yourself, what is the truth here? What's the truth? Am I doing this because I want to do it? Do I feel called to do this? And if the answer is no, but I think I should, or no, but I really want to fit in. Well, the truth is just no, you don't really feel called to do it. So when you start asking yourself, what is the truth? Even if sometimes the truth might be petty, like somebody did something that hurt my feelings. And I was like, oh, I wish they'd just leave and I never have to see them again. That was my truth. Now, did I really mean that? No, but that was that little T truth we talked about, right?
Mm.
Just the little petty feelings that you know that you don't really feel, but you still have to acknowledge. Because once you acknowledge those little T truths, then they can open the door to the big T truth. The big
Okay.
T truth in that situation would be, for instance, that person really hurt my feelings. I think I need a little space from them, but I understand that they did that out of fear. And while I might not trust them, I don't hate them and I can forgive. Like I don't have to harbor any negative feelings towards them. But to get to that big truth, you first have to admit the little truth. The little truth holds your hand and walks you to the big truth. But that's how you eventually get to your calling. You ask yourself and your purpose. You ask yourself, what is the truth? And even if it sounds really petty or maybe a voice from your smaller self, that's okay. Because that little truth is going to lead you. It's going to hold your hand and walk you to the bigger, the truer, the capital T truths.
I'm loving that. If there is one thing that I'm going to learn from this conversation with you at this point, that is go back to that big questions. What is the real truth here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of your feelings. Because again, sometimes your feelings are just temporary, right? Feelings are temporary. But tell the truth about how you feel. And to know that that will lead you to, again, the greater truth. But you first have to tell the truth about how you feel.
Okay. So we start with the truth, then we acknowledge our emotion,
Yes.
and then we get into the layers of meanings from
Yeah.
those emotions.
Exactly. It's the way I think about it too, is that feelings are mutable. They're always changing.
Hmm.
That's the little truth. The little truth with the lowercase t, it's always changing. But the big truth is timeless.
Okay.
The big truth is that which really doesn't experience a lot of change. So we're slowly walking our way to that timelessness, but you have to walk through all those other little layers of truth, all those other little checkpoints before you get to the timeless truth.
This is so cool at so many levels. Conceptually, I see all the steps here, but at the same time, it's very practical as well, so that we can look into how we can deal with different difficult situation. And I think these are also good prompts questions for journaling as well. So
Yeah,
we can unpack what is actually going on.
exactly.
Nice. Thank you for that. Now I'm curious because you have a lot of experience in different pockets of different sectors. If there is one thing that is uniquely you in those area, what would that be?
It's funny because it's uniquely me and then it's universally everyone. And that's just that spirit that exists within myself, taking on this personality, this character in this particular lifetime, but that also exists in everyone else. You know, it's kind of broad, but I guess if that spirit has something that does carry it through, it would be radical love. But what I'm learning about radical love is that it's not always agreeable.
Can you elaborate that for me?
Radical love doesn't enable bad behavior. And what is bad behavior? That could be aggression, or whether it's passive or active towards another. That's not justified in the sense that your life is literally being threatened right now. Do you see what I'm saying? A lot of times, sometimes we're taught to just get along to go along.
Mhm.
So even if somebody does something terrible to you, they say, oh, just turn the other cheek. However, that's a misinterpretation of that original message, which comes from Jesus. That's the way it was taught, but that's not historically what Jesus was actually talking about. Love, let's see, how can I say this? Love accepts the equality of it all. So anywhere you have some sort of hierarchy in the sense that you say, my spirit or your spirit is better or greater than somebody else. I mean, that's not love. So when someone is showing you aggression, they're trying to dominate over you. That's not love. Love says, no, there's not going to be any domination here. So it's interesting because I was actually talking to my therapist this morning, and they say that humans, one of our closest relatives is a chimpanzee. And when you look at chimpanzees and you look at other monkeys, they're very hierarchical. They have all of these systems put in place in their societies. And a lot of times, human behavior and our systems can match their systems. And I think the point of spirituality is to actually ascend some of those primitive systems that we get from those particular genes that we share with them, right? Those systems of domination, those systems of that type of hierarchy. Sometimes hierarchy is necessary in an organization, but not in the sense that you are worth less than me just because. No one is worth more or less than anyone else. We're all equal. And love recognizes that, but also stands up for someone who is, or yourself when you're not being treated as equal.
So what I'm hearing is, as soon as there is any comparison, any differentiation, then what has been done corrupted the underlying value of love.
You know what? That's a really good way to put it. Comparison isn't necessarily bad, right? But when you don't have a sense that your worth is eternal, that your worth doesn't change, if you think that your worth and your value changes compared to who you're standing next to, then we do have a problem because love is no longer there. But once you realize that your worth and value, again, never changes, and we all have the same worth and value, then you're not really comparing yourself to other people in that way. You might look at somebody else and say, oh, look at what they're doing. That's really cool. That's unique to them. That's their calling. But you're not trying to be better than someone, because being better than really doesn't exist. Even in a race, maybe someone is just faster, and that's okay. It's not a value system. It doesn't say anything about your true worth or value, because everybody's worth and value is the same. We just all come here to live our particular calling and to live our purpose. That was something I was actually thinking about this morning, V, where I feel like people really do get caught up in looking at others, and then they get really upset if they see or they perceive that someone else is expanding or growing in a way that they really wish for themselves. And my question is, why are you looking at this person? They're living their own calling. You have your own calling to live. It has nothing to do with this person over here and their business. Keep your eyes on your own paper and maximize your own calling. But people bring in a lot of suffering in their lives when they're constantly looking at other people instead of maximizing their own true sense of self and learning who that self really is.
Yeah, I think it is a lifelong lesson that make all of us a work in progress, like continuously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Asking ourselves, who are you? Who are you truly? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? And then listening to the call that's coming from the inside. But it's hard to hear what's coming from the inside if you're so busy looking at somebody else over there whose calling is something completely different from what yours might be.
This is really cool. And I like how you summarize it so effortlessly in the two sentences. The first one is worth is eternal. And
Yeah,
once we realize that and we accept that, then worth and values never change.
yeah,
I know it's really hard to get to that acceptance point, but it's also a very simple way to summarize the
that's
reason why
right.
we need to look into the bigger questions of who we are and what's our calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's move to the keyword discussion.
Mhm.
So I provide you a list with 12 keywords, and which one did you select?
Integrity.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what this word means for you?
Yeah, for me, again, integrity is tied to the truth. And it's about aligning with that truth, even if it has negative short-term consequences. It's not being afraid to live by that truth, even if in the short term, it might hurt you in some way to do that. Because in the long term, integrity is priceless. When you go outside of your integrity, it's like selling yourself out. It's like selling your soul. And that never really works out. And we can see countless examples in life and also in the world and in movies or whatnot about how when you sell yourself out, you step out of alignment with the truth, how that always leads to all sorts of negative consequences. I think sometimes what trips people up is they look on the outside and they say, well, look at this person. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and yet they have millions of dollars. They seem to be happy. But what people fail to realize is, but what is it like to live as that person? Are they really happy? Or do they feel like they have to buy their happiness? And when they do, how long does that happiness actually last? For 5 minutes? For 10? Is it eternal happiness? And so what I've found in my life, when I look at all of these examples, or even in my own life, when you step outside of integrity and you go against truth, you are always walking away from joy and a sense of security. Because when you have integrity, you have everything. You don't feel so separated within yourself. You don't feel at odds within yourself. There's unity there. So that's what integrity means for me. It means unity with the truth.
I really like that. And you also pose another big question, is this eternal happiness? And it is go back to your point earlier about all of the joy that you find in yourself every day. I find that integrity is a really strong word.
Mhm.
And it is one of the words that can easily be challenged.
Mm.
We see on the news that one of the former president has all of these felony charges, and it makes such a big dent in our history. And it just tells me that how easily integrity can be challenged, and everyone's facing with that challenge.
Yeah.
Is there a story that you can share with us of a time when your integrity is being challenged, and how did you negotiate with yourself
Mm,
in that situation?
that's a great question because, to be honest, I feel like I learned these lessons so early on where I got my hands slapped for lying that I just don't do it anymore because I don't really see the benefit. But let me see if I can think back. I will say that when I was starting my business, I was actually helping someone else out with a similar business, but they were selling a different type of product. Now, this person was the person who had ruined my hair. And this is what prompted me to create the product that I created. But I was always taught that before you leave a job, you should always give 2 weeks notice. And so I thought, even if I really don't like what she did, and even though I know I'm starting another company that's similar but different, I still felt like I should follow through with 2 weeks to give her enough chance to hire somebody else. And within that time period, she was still getting shipments in from her supplier. And I did have a moment where I thought I could find out who her supplier is, and then I could just start my business using her supplier. And I really thought about it. Now, granted, there were a lot of disadvantages to her supplier. Her supplier often lied to her. Her supplier sometimes sent her poor product. But it definitely ran across my mind. I even picked up the phone and called DHL to see if I could get more information. But at a certain point, I stopped myself because I realized, what am I really doing? What is this serving? What is this really serving? And if I want to do something better, and I wanted to create something better than what she had created, because I witnessed on a daily basis her lying to customers. I witnessed her taking money for products she didn't have. I witnessed so many horrible business practices while I was there. And while I wanted to create something better, I realized I can't create something better. I can't start the foundation of my new company lying or trying to get over or undercutting her. That's not how you build a strong foundation. And so I put the phone down and I said, no, I'm going to build something better and I'm going to do it on my own. And I'm going to find my own manufacturer. And I'm going to make sure that it's a company with integrity, who I can trust, and who has better product and who's consistent. And I'm going to do that. And it's hard work. It was hard work to do that. I'm going to just do the hard work to create something that again is full of integrity. But I had to be the integrity first. And that's what I decided to lay my foundation with. Yes, having to do more work and extra work, but at the end of the day, I think it was worth it because so many amazing things came from just the solid foundation that I created in the beginning of just choosing to have a company that was built on integrity.
It's such an amazing story. And I love how you say, I cannot create something better by lying.
Yeah,
So when you pick up the phone, or when you were planning to call that
yeah,
supplier, what
yeah.
went through your mind to stop you making the call?
Well, I did pick up the phone. I'll be honest, I picked up the phone and I called DHL. And DHL wouldn't give me a lot of information. But see, my background is in journalism, so I know how to be an investigative journalist. Like I could have really dug and I could have figured it out. But what stopped me was on my insides, I was being fragmented. I was tearing apart at the seams because a part of me knew that this wasn't right. On the inside, we can either be unified or we can be fragmented with all of these different parts floating around, all these different minds, but then this, but then that, but then this, but then that. But a lot of times it's because we're out of integrity somewhere. We
Okay.
did something that abandoned ourselves, and now we're just all over the place. But I started to have a physical reaction because I just knew I was out of alignment with the truth. Something in me just knew it was wrong. And that's knowing that and then listening to that and being like, this isn't the way to go. This isn't the way to go. And making the conscious choice to have a business with, again, more integrity. That's what got me to hang up the phone. But I also just listened to my body. I listened to my heart. My heart rate was starting to speed up a bit. I just didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good about myself. And I decided to take that cue to stop what I was doing instead of just going further, to just stop what I was doing. And I said I could take the time to either research all her stuff or to build my stuff better. And I decided to take that same time to just build something unique to me.
This is cool. Are you willing to share the result of that journey up until today?
Oh, absolutely, because I think it's a testament to what we're talking about when it comes to integrity.
Yep.
So you might say, like, the short-term consequence of me not doing that was I did have to put in more work to find a manufacturer that I could trust and that I could work with. But I can say that I did find an exceptional manufacturer. And within 3 months, my business had made all the money that I had put into it. So I had put in about $10,000 or $11,000 into the business. I had made all that money back. Within another 3 months, I was in Essence magazine, which was the premier magazine for Black women in the US. I was also in Black Hair UK magazine. I mean, and then I had a business that thrived. 2006, it started in 2013. Come
Yeah.
2016, it had really exploded. You know, I had celebrities wearing my product. I had them shouting me out. You know, I was shipping in all of these warehouses in the US and the UK, shipping all over the world. My hair was appearing in music videos, in the, you know, English National Opera House, at the Washington National Opera House. I mean, it was just crazy. And all because I decided to start with integrity and put integrity first. It turned into a multi-million-dollar business in what seemed like overnight.
I'm just admiring you so much more after learning about this.
Oh, thank you, V.
Now, I want to flip the story to the darker side of integrity.
Yes.
So let's imagine a world without integrity. So I'm talking about very dystopian world where integrity is not even exist in the vocabulary of these creator.
Mhm.
How do you imagine that world's going to look like? What's the interactions with these individuals going to look like?
Well, a world without integrity has to be a bit of a hellscape because there's no truth. You can't trust anyone because no one means what they say. People are always backstabbing just to get what they want. There's no sense of the greater good, no sense of what's good for the community. There's no sense of non-duality. So this kind of goes back to spirituality. I think a life without integrity is very primitive. And the reason why is it just lacks an understanding of who we all are and what we're doing here. So for instance, when we think about non-duality, I like to explain it like this. And for anyone who's listening who might not be aware, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a cell, like a little tiny cell that lives in your heart, right? It's a heart cell. It's one of a million, but it lives in the heart. It works in the heart. It'll die in the heart. It's a heart cell. That's all it's going to go. It's always going to be a heart cell. It's not going to go anywhere else. And then let's say you travel down your body to your big toe and you have a big toe cell. And same thing with the big toe cell. It lives in the big toe. It works in the big toe. It will die in the big toe. It's a big toe cell. If you ask the heart cell and the big toe cell, hey, are you individuals? Are you separate? They're going to say, yeah, of course we're separate. The heart's going to say, I'm a heart cell. I live in the heart. The big toe cell is going to say, I'm a big toe cell. I do big toe things. I live in the big toe. We are individuals. I'm separate. And from one perspective, they are. But if you zoom out, what do they make? The one body. The same goes for humans on this planet. We think we're separate. We think we're separate from the animals. We think we're separate from the trees, from the air. And in one perspective, we are. But if you zoom out, what do we make? That one body of Earth.
Yeah.
And then you just keep zooming out. You think Earth is separate in the solar system. It's separate from all the other planets. But then you zoom out once more, and there's the entire Milky Way. And it's just, we all are individuals, yes, but we also are the entire Milky Way. Plus. And so if you're operating as if you are separate and there's no integrity and you're lying and everybody is just doing something to serve the tiny self, you know what they call that? That's called cancer. Marianne Williamson first introduced this imagery to me, and it's so true. That's called cancer. When one cell decides that it's going to go off and do its own thing and F the body and everything else, that's how cancer is formed. It's parasitical. It eats everything. And guess what happens? Cancer kills the body. It can't even survive anymore.
That is so true.
So with no integrity, everything dies. There's no more life existing in that particular form. So in a society with no integrity, there is no society.
That is powerful.
Yeah. There's just useless destruction, misery, and awful death.
That is powerful. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I like how you use the analogy of just our human body's cell. Each of them has their own functions, but at the end of the day, they are one.
One.
And this reminds me of philosophy in Buddhism, the idea
Yes.
of oneness.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really cool. We are moving to the end of the episode very soon. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us or any other stories about integrity and how you show up with integrity?
I think if you understand that integrity is the key to your long-term happiness and joy, you wouldn't operate outside of it so easily. I think the problem is that people are very short-sighted sometimes. They're just looking at what's next instead of looking at life through a long-term view. So I had a situation where someone stole my idea, and then I had invited them to do something. And then, they presented my stolen idea kind of as theirs, right? That might have worked in the short term, but the price you pay to your own soul, the fragmentation within yourself, literally blocks you away. You have no access to joy when you do that. And I can see it in the other person. I can see how their access to joy is blocked. But if there had been a longer term thought, if they had maybe decided to collaborate, if they had stayed within their integrity, well, there are more opportunities coming up that I could have shared and brought them along for. But now I can't because I can't trust. So I shared an example where I had a choice to operate outside of integrity. And that's just an example where someone else made a different choice to actually operate outside of integrity. But when you know that from a long-term perspective, it literally cuts you off your joy, you have to say, is it worth it? Because what do I really want? And people say they want all sorts of things on the outsides of themselves. Money, cars, houses, a certain lifestyle, and everybody does need to survive. They need to have their needs met when it comes to survival. Good, healthy food, safe housing, clean water. That's all necessary. But outside of that, is that what you're really looking for? Or are you looking for a feeling within yourself? Or do you really want that goal or ambition? Or are you really looking for the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling of being able to trust yourself? People think it's on the outside of them. Like we started this conversation, they think it's external to them. Where really those feelings are on the inside and available now. But you have to act in accordance with them. And that's how you really achieve those states.
This is really cool. And I guess the more we get into the conversation and discussion about integrity, the more I realize that this is one of the stage that it can almost be very binary.
Yeah.
We either have it or we don't. There is no scenario that, well, it depends.
Mhm.
And for me, it's one of the mindset that I'm really into, like
Yeah.
either have it or we don't.
Yeah. And sometimes different people have different lowercase t truths, right?
Yeah.
If you're not hurting anybody else, it's not on me to tell you what's right or what's true for you. So I'm not going to. But you have to know what's right and what's true for you. But there's some clear lines that we can draw. This is what yoga tries to do with your yamas and the niyamas, right? Where they say non-violence, non-stealing, non-hoarding. In Buddhism, they have right speech, right action. These are the things we can agree on. So if you just live your life by those things, this is what we can agree on. Other personal things, what might be true for you, might not be true for me. That's okay. You live your life the way you're meant to. But these are some of the core values that we can agree upon that make for a peaceful and harmonious society, but also a peaceful and harmonious internal life as well.
Thank you so much for wrapping it up very nicely.
Oh, thank
And
you.
2 more questions left. What's next for you in the coming 12 months?
That's a great question. I'm leaving it open. I know what I would like to see, what might be fun, but I've learned that I don't necessarily have to control life so much. All I have to do is show up, do my best, listen to my intuition, follow my calling. So go where I feel called and say yes when it feels like the truth to say yes. And I'm learning that if I can live life that way, life can surprise me in 1,000,001 different ways. But if I am looking for joy and I am looking for harmony, to know that it already exists within me, I don't need anything on the outside to give me those feelings because they're already in me.
So that's the attitude of trying to say yes.
Yes,
What is the best yes that you have said to?
that's hard, V. I would say the best yes I have said to, that sounds so strange, but just saying yes to God, to my concept of the all and the nothing, saying yes to the great mystery, saying yes to integrity no matter what, even if I might get beat up for it, saying yes and living in my truth and not budging from it. God is the truth and truth is God. So that's the best yes. And saying yes to this yoga journey because it also helped to bring me here.
And thank you for that. That's why I have the privilege to be your student.
Yay!
So if I flip the coin on that question,
Mhm.
what is the yes you say to that you now regret it?
Oh man, that's easy because it happened the other day. I recently learned that sometimes things are given to you and you're not necessarily supposed to share them with others. This has been a hard lesson because I grew up thinking that I should share everything, everyone. And I'm learning that that's not mature. So the other day, I gave someone, again, an opportunity that was mine. And I saw that they really disrespected me in the process. And I shouldn't have said yes to that collaboration. And so that was something that I had to learn recently. You know, they talk about balance in yoga.
Yeah.
And in Buddhism, they talk about the middle path. So not being too much this way and too much that way, not sharing it all at all the time and giving it all at all the time, but finding the nice balance between dryness and wetness, like in climate and the weather, just finding that nice balance. And that's what I'm also trying to find within myself, that balance. So I said yes to a collaboration that I probably shouldn't have said yes to.
I think we all learn lessons like that at different
Yeah,
points in life. And I think that's how we grow.
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very brave that you share that on a channel like this.
Oh, I just said hopefully somebody might be able to relate, you know?
Of course, we have an entire episode in the past about failure and the multi things.
Yeah. Oh, I could talk about that for
Exactly.
ages. But if you let failure do it, failure will take you to such great heights because my crazy business story was born out of failure. And then you look at it now and you're like, what?
Multi-billion
Wild. Yeah,
later.
but it was born out of failure initially.
Okay. I'm hearing another episode for that.
Anytime, B, anytime for you.
I appreciate that. We're getting to the last question of the episode,
Mhm.
and I hope you have fun with this one. So imagine that you are going on your dream vacation tomorrow. What is the one item that you will pack with you?
Oh, I'm packing my Kindle. I'm packing my Kindle 100%. That's what I'm packing. I'm packing my Kindle because it's just so nice to have all of the world's greatest literature
Hmm,
in one device. And if I ever need any advice or I want somebody to just hold my hand, I can go back through time, find one of my friends who lived way before I did, and seek out their company, seek
nice.
out their advice and their friendship. And it's just a beautiful thing to have. Books and literacy.
Awesome. What's your go-to genre?
Oh, okay. So normally I read a lot of spiritual books.
Okay.
And then I also will read sci-fi.
Nice. That's
And
my
then
genre.
sometimes I'll read like historical romance. But one time I read this book that was both historical, romance, sci-fi drama. It was about zombies that
Whoa.
came back during the Civil War, during America's Civil War. So when the soldiers would die in the Civil War, they would come back as zombies. But then, like, you had the slavery component, and then it turned into a Western, and it was the wildest book I've ever read. But it was
Jesus.
so good. And they won all these awards because it was so random, but it was so good.
Sounds like a great combination of all
Yeah, it was
genres.
so cute. It was such a good read. I loved it. It's called Dread Nation if anybody wants to read it. DREAD Nation. It was such a roller coaster. I really enjoyed it.
That sounds cool. I'll definitely look up for that book.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's it.
Thank you. So this is the end of the episode. Thank you again for your time and sharing your story with us.
Yes. My name is Lana Boone, and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity.